Alright, today we're talking bases. Lots and lots of bases. I'm going to give you 3 different ways that you can do these. One includes only stuff that comes in your GW box. So leading off here in this 3 base set is going to be version number 1. This is going to be only what's coming in our GW kits, or realistically most every other kit. It's going to be the sprue and it's going to be the base. Sure, you'll need some glue, but I mean that's kind of an understanding when you're modeling, right? Coming up after that is going to be the around the house version, and this is going to be stuff that, you guessed it, you can find around the house, whether that's in your garden, from pavers, stuff you have left over from projects, maybe you went to the local park, got some sand. So we're just going to talk about really easy accessible things that you can get either cheap or free. Number 3 is going to be your store-bought stuff. That's going to be your technical paints, your crackle paints, your textures, stuff like that, things you got to actually pay and go out there and get. So let's quit talking about it and we'll go do it. Let's get into number 1. So for number 1, we're going to get our base, some sprue. That's it. That's what we're going to use to make number 1. So what we're looking for in this step is to cut this sprue down into some random looking spikes. And obviously it doesn't look like spikes, so what we're going to do is we're going to use our clippers and we're going to use a hobby knife. So here we go. Now that we've got our 3 segments, you could just slap them on here. You know, it's spiky, but it also doesn't look very natural. It doesn't look like something you see on an alien world or a rebel-filled battlefield. So we're going to chop these up just a little bit more to make them look a little more appealing for what we're going for. You'll want to cut random angles, big chunks. What you're looking for here is to make these things look very random, very chaotic. You don't want it to look like somebody's actually doing this intentionally, because that's going to kind of throw off the vibe. But you're also going to want to focus on giving yourself a flat attachment point. Something that when you mount it to the base is actually going to give you a good connection. It's cheap, it's easy, but it will take you just a little bit of time. Obviously, when you're doing this, be as careful as you can. If you can cut away from yourself, do that. Try and avoid bandaging up your thumb and your fingers as much as possible. Decreases your dexterity, doesn't do a lot for your hobby goals. And here is our first spike.
Wow!
So I'm just going to go ahead and do this 2 more times, and then we'll go ahead and mount it to the base. After about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes of cutting and clipping, this is what we're left with. I've got my 3 main spikes, and then I've got a load of other texture stuff that I'm going to glue onto the base. This is going to help when we come to the painting step, and it's going to give it some more character and some more texture. So what we're going to do first is just grab our glue, come down here, put a couple dots around, stuff for us to work with later on. And then you're going to want to make sure to leave an area for your model to stand. And you're also going to want to consider overhangs on the edge of the base, because if it's overhanging your base, it's going to affect your other models, placement within your ranks, stuff like that. Might cause some issues for you. What you're looking for is that natural feel, not so much something that you'd find coming off somebody's hobby table. Now this is pretty aggressive. You definitely don't have to go this tall. I'm not going to do it all on my bases. Again, that variety between the taller and the shorter spikes is going to give you a lot of character and make it a lot more sellable and believable. So that's it. This is version 1. That's our free version. Alright, for version 2, we're going to start the same way. We're going to cut our main spikes, and then I'm going to go ahead and add some stuff I've got around the house. So what I've got here is a mix of sand and really small gravel. This is some good stuff, and it'll add a lot of really good texture to that base extremely easily. So here we go with version 2. I'm not going to bore you with the cutting and the clipping again, so I'll see you after the spikes are made. Alright, easy peasy. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of sand onto this spike right here. It's going to camouflage that flat side a little bit, and then I'm going to put a little bit onto the base. And just kind of sprinkle that on there. You'll be able to tell a little bit of difference in the outcome of these. They've got definitely 2 different, very unique looks to them. and you'll see that after the painting as well. So here we go, third and final base. We're going to be using this as the store-bought base. This is going to be one you can play with if you want to go buy stuff. Use your texture paints, things like a grill and earth, to get that nice crackle effect. I'm going to also use some Plasto. This is just some plastic modeling putty. It's nice stuff. It'll spread around, give me some more texture. What I've been doing is just shoving it in here, making sure it gets up against the creases on the bases where the spikes are meeting the base, in order to again break it up and make it look like it's all part of the earth and like these are not additions on top of it. Get a generous scoop of this stuff, lay it on here. I want a couple different thicknesses and depths. It's going to create different kinds of cracking. And then I'm even going to put a little bit up here to get some cracks up on the rock. Alright, so that's it. We've got all three bases done. They all look pretty good in their own right. I'm going to go ahead, hit them with a black rattle can primer, and then I'm going to show you what I consider to be easy mode for these. So the first step to this next portion is going to be just putting a dry brush down. We're going to get a little bit of our white, and we're going to make sure that it gets on there nice and evenly. We're not going to try and get it on there real heavy. What we don't want is to lose all of our nice blacks and shadows that we've just worked on building up. I'm also going to use one side of my base as a shadow side. So that's going to dictate a lot of where I'm putting my white. Since it's going to be a shadow side, there's really no point in highlighting it. And here we're going to leave this section in the dark. So this is base number 3. That's the look you get with that. Going up to base number 2, or around the house base, we're going to make our directional lighting coming from this angle. So we want to leave everything back here in the dark. This is just something I'm doing with a specific army that I'm painting. You can definitely use this technique without the directional lighting portion. And here you go. That's what the sand looks like. Again, all that is a little bit of leftover playground sand. Super simple, really easy to get your hands on, and fairly cheap. Now we're going to go to our free 99 version. And we'll see how this one winds up painting up. I'm just going to put a little bit more white in there. I don't think it's quite strong enough in this area yet, but it's definitely much easier to go in and add more than to try and take some away. So start slow, go gentle on this, and work your way to the final outcome. And so there you have it. That one's the free 99. Now for the rest of this, I'm probably going to need a little bit more than just throwing some paint on my table paper. So let me go ahead and go grab one of my palettes. I'll be right back. I don't know why, but this is just always the most satisfying part. So for this, I'm going to use a combination of contrast snakebite leather, Drakenhof nightshade, and contrast black Templar. This is going to be my warm to complement my cold shadow side, and then this is just going to help knock everything down a little bit. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to start with free 99. Go ahead and grab some of my Drakenhof, get it in here on my shadow side. I just want to get some of those blue tones to show through. Obviously it's over black, so you're really not going to see it very much, but it will be there. Your eye's going to pick it up even if you don't consciously understand it's there. Get a little bit of my black, add that in as well just to obscure everything a little bit and blend it out towards where my browns are going to start coming in. Then get some of my browns, start at the very brightest areas and work my way back, eventually blending these two things together to get a nice transition. And with the contrast paint, it's really pretty simple to get that. You just need to kind of blend these two, play with the line, and you'll get a transition. For what we're going for, I think that's a winner. Next up, around the house. Let's start with Drakenhof, I don't know. The Nightshade. We're going with the Nightshade. add a little bit of my Black Templar across the rocks, the spikes, and then again start from the brightest area, fill that in, and then work back towards the transition. So there we go. Alright, there's around the house. Let's go for the store-bought. Again, Nightshade on the shadow side, Black Templar all over the spikes, and Snakebite Leather, working from the bright to the dark. And there we go. There's store-bought. Time to come back in, do our last little bit of edge highlights to make those things pop, and we're gonna be done. These things really are extremely fast, and if you're doing them in mass, like I'm going to be doing when I knock out the other 20-ish bases for these kill teams, you're not going to have to wait on it to dry. You're not going to have to worry about using a hair dryer, doing anything cheesy like that, because everything is going to be dry by the time you finish the step and come back to it. Alright, a little bit of Abaddon, clean up those base rims, and we'll call it a day. So there we go, super easy. I've got all 3 bases here. I'll leave you guys to judge. Which do you like the best? I think there's definitely pros and cons to each. Obviously, free 99 is free. The stuff from around the house, most people have it, so it may as well be free. And then for the store-bought stuff, it does give you a lot more freedom to do whatever you want to do with it and to make it your own. Now, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. But if you'll excuse me, while you go ahead and do all the YouTube things, you know the YouTube things. I got bases to do. I got some kill teams to get ready. So I'm out of here.